Have you ever walked out of a job or a meeting and you thought that wasn't just hard, that was unfair? It happened to me and more than once, and I've been there. And so, my guest for today, Kristin Zhivago. And in this episode, Kristin shares a moment when she was just 17 years old. She realized that being underestimated could either crush her or fuel her. Spoiler alert, she chose to rise. And she went on to become one of the first women to sell in machine shops, build a company in Silicon Valley, coach leaders in IBM and Dow Jones, and now runs a thriving digital marketing agency with a team of 20 people. But what really struck me in our conversation was her definition of confidence. It's not about control or proving yourself, it's about treating yourself like a friend. So, hi everyone. For those who don't know me, my name is Limor Bergman Gross, and you come to the podcast From a Woman to a Leader. This is a podcast for women in tech who are ready to lead with impact without burnout and without becoming someone they are not. And this episode, I sit with Kristin Zhivago, and Kristin is full of wisdom on succeeding in a man's world without seeing men as the enemy, navigating workplace, building lasting confidence, and why dropping jerks might just be the best business decision you ever made. So if you ever doubted yourself or felt stuck in a toxic environment, you need to hear this episode. So are you ready? Let's just dive in. Hi, Kristin. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Thank you so much for being up early and starting your day with me. So thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure.
And I'm super excited to talk to you today about a topic that I think is, first of all, very relevant, and also I'm super passionate about it. And we're going to talk about how to succeed in a man's world. Before we do that, I wanted to ask you maybe if you can share how you started and what inspired you to start your first company. When you were, I think you were just 28, right? When you started your first company.
Yeah. I started out selling. Well, one of the jobs I had when I was younger, besides I used to sing in pizza joints and things like that. I was a musician, have a degree in music. I sort of sang my way through college. I but I was always interested in technology, and when I was 17, I was working for a Pratt and Whitney distributor, and who had a machine shop. And he said, you should sell for us because you're wearing a mini skirt, and this is back in the day. And so he gave me a catalog. Sorry, and I went out and I started pitching machine shops in the San Diego area. And I quickly learned that if you didn't know what you were talking about, you weren't going to sell anything. One incident in particular, I went into a machine shop, and since I think I was the first woman in the United States to do this selling of machine shop tools, so the machine shop just kind of shut down, and they all came out, and who is this person? And there was this old foreman for the shop, and he said, "Okay, you're selling machine shop tools. Tell me how your drill bit is better than the one I'm using now." And I didn't have an answer because my boss thought I would just be able to sell with, mini skirt and and a catalog. So I walked out to my car and I thought, I'm going to learn everything I can about tech and selling. And I've been doing that ever since. That little encounter changed my life. So since then, I started a ad agency in Silicon Valley with my husband. We did that for about 12 years. And it was great. But the Macintosh came out, and I looked at my husband. He was doing our graphic design. I said, they're all going to go in house. So I'm going to help them. And so I reinvented myself for 2 or 3 years. I didn't even know what I was supposed to do every morning when I got up. And we were at the peak of our earning power. So it was hard to walk away. But I turned myself into a revenue coach. That's what I called myself. And I started
Hmm.
doing marketing and sales turnarounds for companies of all sizes, including IBM, Dow Jones, those kind of companies. Um, and then in 2017, I realized there were a lot of companies who were they had a good company that they had started, but they were like deer in the headlights for digital marketing. So, and I knew a lot about digital and marketing. So I started this agency, and we've been going great ever since.
That's wonderful. And your story is so inspiring. And I see a common thread, like a lot of confidence and believing in yourself. And you mentioned, I think you mentioned to me when we talked, like, I don't know, like maybe a month or so ago, how crucial it is to believe in yourself. And it's kind of a key to success and to your success. How can you? I wonder, I mean, if there is some secret or something you can share, like, because it's easy to say, oh, believe in yourself and you can do anything you want, right? And I try to say that to my kids as well. But it's easier said than done.
Yeah,
So can
it's
you
a
share maybe what worked for you or, what others can do?
Yeah, I was very ambitious when I was younger, and that was part of the drive. Just wanting, but it wasn't a selfish ambition. I realized I did a test on myself years and years ago, and it was based on a book called What Color is Your Parachute? And it was about helping you in your career. And the test was that and I recommend this for everybody, by the way. It's a great exercise that you sit down, and you can do this on your computer, but I actually think it's better with a pen and paper. And you write down everything in your life that satisfied you, that made you say, I'm glad I did that. Not things that other people cared about, but things that you really were satisfied about afterwards. And then you just walk away for 24 hours. You just don't think about it. And you come back to the list and you ask yourself, what's the main theme here? What's the thing that's really what's the big idea? And in my case, I think partly because of my autistic brother. I have a lot of brothers and sisters, but one of them was autistic. Um, it's actually the anniversary of his death today. So
Oh,
it's a sad day. He and I were super close, and I became his conservator later on. But he was born when I was 8, and he taught me unconditional love. Just because he had a hard time living in this world, and,
yeah.
my job was to make sure he was safe and comfortable and all that. My parents were busy doing other things, so for 10 years, I raised him and, a couple of brothers that came after. But I realized when I looked at this list that the main theme was I really enjoy helping other people realize their dreams. And so then you ask yourself, well, how would I do that? And one of the answers was social work, and I was too entrepreneurial to do government kind of work. And but then I realized, because I had come from an entrepreneurial family, that if you can help a business owner or leader succeed, then a whole lot of other people get to realize their dreams too. There's a ripple effect. And the employees are happy, and assuming the company is well managed, and I write a lot about management. The main thing is the manager is fair. More people leave companies because managers are unfair than they do any other reason, in my experience. Um, so if you're working in a nice company and they're taking care of their customers, so then those people are getting their dreams realized, and the people working there are getting their dreams realized. It's a wonderful way of spreading love and joy throughout the world. It's a very satisfying work. So, yeah,
Yeah. And so, first of all, I want to share my condolences. I mean, for the anniversary of your brother.
yeah.
And thank you so much for sharing that. I'm sure it wasn't easy for him. I mean, I think nowadays people are more open to people, I don't know how to call it, if to call it even a disability or what, different circumstances, let's put it that way. I think there is more openness. I just talked yesterday with an entrepreneur who told me, hey, I may not have an eye contact with you, but just that you know, because I'm on the spectrum. And I thought about it like, this is incredible that people feel comfortable talking about it today.
Yeah,
Just a
it's
side note.
changed. It's really changed. The big shift for him was when he was about in his 30s. I read a book called Hearing Equals Behavior. And it was about a gal, Georgie, I think her name was, who had developmental issues. And whenever they took her to the beach, she just cried and cried, screamed. And it turns out a lot of autistics have a hearing spectrum shift. So my brother could hear really loudly the low frequency sounds, motorcycles, airplanes. He could hear an airplane way before we could. And he couldn't hear the high frequency sounds. Once I understood this concept, I thought, wow, this is something. So we had his hearing tested where they play the various frequencies. And then for a while there were people who could play filtered music. So they would filter out the low frequency sounds so he could finally hear the high frequency sounds. And this is important because vowels are low frequency and consonants are high frequency. So S, T, F, all of those words. He couldn't hear them, so he couldn't say them. So if you said, "Hi, Michael, how are you today?" and he was repeating it to you, he'd say, "Hi, Ma, how are you today?" And you couldn't hear him. You couldn't understand him. He was in this one-way, terrible communication thing. And he was a very loving guy. I mean, he could hug you for 5 minutes when you came to visit him. Big outstretched arms and so he was amazing. And so we retrained his hearing. They played the filtered music, and he started teaching himself how to speak with consonants and became much more understandable, and he got out of that one-way communication prison. So it was an amazing thing. But going back to your question about confidence is not about taking control. People think that confidence is about power and control, and it's not. It's actually the opposite. It's understanding and seeing yourself realistically, not judging yourself too harshly, just treating yourself like a friend, like you would a friend. And you can even talk to yourself, I have 2 cats now. My husband also died of the same cancer 3 years ago, and uh you can walk around, talk to the cats and stuff, but you're telling yourself, you're talking to yourself, you're soothing yourself. You're saying, okay, all right, that client meeting was a little tough today. Let's figure out why. And and you sort of counsel yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually a very effective way of seeing yourself in your best light. What we do is we're really hard on ourselves. We're really judgmental. So first something bad happens, and then you're piling it on. And you think about how we talk to ourselves, and I have a friend who just just doesn't see himself the way other people do, and how wonderful a person he is. Every time he does something, it's a catastrophe. If it's a bad something, he made a
Yeah.
mistake. So he's always living under this fear. Actually, he's a relative, but I don't want to say which relative it is.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's the big deal, is understanding what you bring to the world, which is what this little exercise does, and then treating yourself like you treat other people, your friends, and allowing yourself to make mistakes and be okay with it. I mean, you can change your life by learning how to laugh at yourself, not in a bully kind of way, but just like, oops, I did that again, didn't I? My team knows I have strengths and weaknesses, and sometimes I blow it again, and I know it, they know it, we all know it, and okay, you're right, I'll fix it. Here's how I'm going to fix it. And you just go on, you just keep moving. But it's
Yeah.
not about control. Confidence is not about controlling other people or being the big wig with a cigar and running around with your your thumbs in your suspenders and being the hot shot.
I actually,
Absolutely
yeah.
not.
Yeah, I think usually those people that externalize like how important they are the inconfident ones.
It's true. Yeah, they have to prove something. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love, Kristin, I love your kind of, so two tips here, the parachute exercise. Definitely I'm going to do it after this call. And like treating yourself as you would treat a friend. And even, sometimes even asking yourself, oh, if I was like this so and so, what would I say
Yeah,
to them?
absolutely. That's
I
a
love
good
that.
point. Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you something, Kristin. You mentioned fairness. And I wanted to ask you something around that because I just had a client yesterday and she's really mistreated. Like
Mm,
everything is unfair in
mhm.
the circumstances that she's at. And I was trying to help her, obviously, but the situation seems like a little bit harsh. What would you say to someone who is being treated unfairly? And we all know that it happens not just for women, also for men. Let's put it clear. But what do you do in those cases? Because the world is not ideal. We all know that.
Well, the first thing is you get out. You just get out. I have this philosophy. I don't work with jerks. And a jerk is someone who, the way I define a jerk is someone who makes life harder on other people. So every project that a jerk is involved in, and jerks can be male or female, it doesn't matter. They make it more complicated. Like they'll give you half the instructions, and then when you come back with the deliverable based on the instructions they gave you, they'll say, "Oh, you forgot about this part. Why did you leave that out?" And they'll be like, "Well, because you didn't even mention it when we were talking." It's like, excuse me. And managers need to keep an eye out for jerks because jerks will ruin a complete department or a company. One jerk can ruin everything for all the other people who are trying to be nice. Non-jerk people work hard to make it easy for other people. And those are the people you want in your organization. Those are the people you want to surround yourself with in your life. And if somebody's making something hard and every time you try to do something, it doesn't work out and your mind is going on that hamster wheel that says, that wasn't fair. I should have said this and I should have said that. And if I was smart, I would have done this. So you're compounding the jerkiness in your own head because they've given you an unresolvable conflict. That's what they do. They make it harder. You
Yeah.
have to get out. You just have to get out. And you have to be brave enough to know and know in yourself, am I the kind of person that tries to make it easier on everybody else or am I a jerk? And then you say, do I want to stay with this jerk? Do I want to continue this life of dealing in their terrible world that they live in where everything's too hard and it doesn't make sense and it's not fair? You got to get out. You just have to get out. I've dropped really big clients. I had one that was fine to begin with,
Mm-hmm.
and then over time he went through 3 different behavior patterns, and I told him this when I left, and he said, "Why are you I can't believe you're quitting," because he was a big account for us. But my team was applauding in the background,
Yeah.
at their computers because they knew I was dropping him that day, and they were like, "Yes, okay." Um, I told him, I said, "You started out a little bit dismissive, and then you got kind of rude, and then you turned into a gold-plated jerk, and I told you at the front, we don't work with jerks, and so that's why we're leaving." And he said, "Oh, geez, I'm so sorry. I had no idea." I was like, "Yeah, right. Okay, fine." So, yeah, it's hard. You got to walk away, and you have to trust that you're doing the right thing for yourself and for everybody that works with you or for you
Yeah.
and your family and your friends and your husband or wife. I mean, it's so much better if you come home excited and or you leave your in-house computer and get up and interact with your family and you're invigorated by the day. And by the way, um, that's a great thing when you're interviewing people. At the end of the interview, if you're drained, they're a jerk. If you're excited and they've given you something to think about and you're like, wow, that was really great, insightful conversation, that's somebody you want to hire.
That's incredible. And unfortunately, I mean, I had jerks in my career as well. And yeah, I walked away. It's kind of a bummer because, in my client situation, many, women, like, we eventually have to step out. And this jerk doesn't pay the price of their actions. And especially I think in nowadays market, I mean, a lot of women are afraid to make changes just because the market is not great.
Staying in a bad situation, what you have to do is just carefully plan your exit and not get weak and say, oh, it's not so bad. And
Yeah.
it is bad, or you wouldn't want to leave. And in the corporate world, I think it's about 1 in 10 people are jerks because they're real good in big corporations at kissing up, and there's another word about pissing down. Sorry, I don't swear, but it's just and the managers never know that the jerk is doing this because the jerk person always treats management, oh, very nice, everything's cool, everything's easy. But the people that work for them, that's another trick when you're hiring people, is you always talk to at least 1 or 2 people who have worked for that person and draw them out. How was it? And they'll say, oh, it was okay. That's not a resounding yes.
Always okay means it's terrible.
Yeah, they're begging you to ask for more data. Okay, so I think that's part of it, is just knowing that you're right. Asking yourself, is this person making it easier for me to do my job or harder? Or to live my life or to raise my kids or whatever it is. And you just have to walk away. And then when you do, you're going to find that you're in a whole new environment, you're excited, things are going well, and you'll wonder why you stayed so long.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think that also staying is a huge, not just motivation and motivation killer and impact on your mental health. It's also detrimental to your confidence, which is what we talked about, right? I mean, confidence just drops
Yeah,
working
you
with those
don't
kind
believe
of
in yourself
people.
anymore because somebody in your life is making you feel smaller and ineffective. That's what they do. They want to they raise themselves up at the expense of other people. And
Yeah.
so you feel smaller. You feel like you're not as good as that person or as effective as that person. And that's a lie. It's just an outright lie.
Yeah. And if we talk about succeeding in a man's world, what does it mean to you? I'd love to hear
Well, there's
your
a couple of
perspective on
things.
that.
After I talked to you the first time, I thought, I really ought to write an article about this. I have a blog called Kristin's Wisdom because I'm old enough now to say that I have some wisdom. And so I wrote an article about this. And one of the first thing was stop thinking about men as the enemy. I mean, I've been working with engineers, oh, geez, my whole career, decades. And what I discovered when I was 28 is that they will happily do business with you and respect you if you just come in with that confidence. You know what you're doing. You're not cocky about it, but you're confident in your own abilities. And for a while there, I wore in Silicon Valley, I wore a suit and tie. I had a skirt on, but I definitely came in so that they would say, okay, she's here for business. I never wore clothing that was sort of saying I'm here for something else.
Yeah.
So, and they respected that. And outside of the jerks, I've never had a man try to squash me or put me down and stop me from going higher and doing more. Uh, Again, outside of the jerks. So the jerk thing is really important. And the good guys will try to help you, they'll promote you, they'll be thrilled that you're helping them with their business. So that's the first thing is men are not the enemy. They have just as much trouble with jerks. Um, because jerks, compete with each other. So that's the first thing is don't hate men. They're not the problem. It's a different problem. It's the jerks. And then another thing is don't focus on power or control. There's a lot of stuff these days telling women that it's all about power. It's not. It's about helping people and it's about being empathetic. And women, I don't want to generalize, but we're pretty good at empathizing. It's just kind of the way we're set up.
Yeah.
And if you empathize with your workers, your coworkers, your customers, you can make a lot more money than a jerk because you are trying to give that customer what they want, which is my whole career has been based on what does the buyer want and how can you give it to them. So I've just been teaching people about the buying process for a very long time and how to figure out what they wanted when they came to you, what was their mindset when they set out to buy, and all of that. So that's another thing is don't be concerned about power. It's not power. It's helping people. Um, Another thing is don't be worried to use your natural talents. If you're good at something, just that's fine and grow that as much as you can. And by the way, you always have to be learning, especially now with
Yeah.
AI, okay? All of us are swimming in this pool where it changes every 5 minutes. They change the color of the water, they change the temperature of the water. And what we thought was, okay, we've got this now, it's changing really fast, faster than I've ever seen. And so we have to be hyper learners. Everybody, every human on the planet has to be a hyper learner right now. Um, Another big one that really helps women is observe, but don't absorb.
What do you mean?
Well, again, because we tend to be somewhat empathetic, and again, I'm generalizing, so forgive me for that. But um, we, as women, we tend to absorb a lot of this stuff, especially with a jerk, where you just take it on yourself and you're wrestling with this thing in your head, and it ruins your life. But all situations are better approached if you just, and something bad happens, you just watch it go past and you say, oh, that was interesting. What can I learn from this? Instead of taking it on and saying, oh, geez, all this happened and now what do I do? And, you don't absorb it. You are a separate entity onto yourself. So you just observe it. My husband used to say, find it, face it, fix it. And that's what we do all day in my company. If there's a problem, if I've made a mistake, I tell people right away I made a mistake. And this is what I'm going to do to now that we've found it, I'm facing it, and now we're going to fix it. So you never really have any problems that hang around and keep continuing to mess up your life and your company and so on. Another tip is to picture yourself the way you would like to be. When you think of yourself, and you can do exercises with this where you just sort of picture yourself, over there. And who is this person? And, if I picture myself the way I'd want to be, I'm probably taller, skinnier. And yeah, okay, fine. But there's a calmness. I had a friend, I met her when she was 80 and she died at 92, and we really spent a lot of time together and I learned a lot from her, and she was the most calm, kind, grace filled woman I'd ever met, and she really became an example to me in my life of just how to just be. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. You're just there and you're doing your thing, so you don't absorb it, you just observe it and then you act on that. Another thing I tell women, especially, is to give yourself a break. Now, I'm a sailor. My husband and I had a 48-foot catamaran built in South Africa, and we sailed it home together. But before that, I was a windsurfer in San Francisco Bay, and then we had a monohull, then we had this catamaran, and I'm currently building or having built a 40-foot aluminum boat that we're going to go cruising with. I have a friend now that sails with me, and he and I are building this boat. Um, so have something else that takes you completely away from the business stuff, because you've got to let your brain just focus on it, and in your subconscious. Your subconscious will do a lot of work for you if you let it. And then the last thing is just learn so you can teach. That's that's why you learn, so you can turn around and help other people and help lift them up.
Wow, so much wisdom. This
Like
is
I said, I've been
incredible.
around a while.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I love everything you said, and giving yourself a break is so important. I think that we don't do that enough, and especially when you have a business, it's even harder, right? Because when you work for someone, oh, you have vacation days, and so you like, oh, I have to use my days. But when you own a business, like you have to give yourself a break, and it's so important.
Yep. Yeah, every day I take time to just I mean, I'm a faith person. I really believe there's a God, and I have learned to hear him. I mean, that's one of the things my friend taught me is she wasn't crazy and she heard from God. So I was like, okay, maybe there's something to this. And it took me a really long time, but now I just get quiet in the mornings, and I've learned how to turn off the chatter in my head. And you don't do it by telling your head to stop thinking, because your head can't do that.
Yeah,
You start out I started out learning listening to white noise like a fan or something, and actively listening to that, and then those higher thoughts kind of come in, and it's not you. It's not what you would have thought of for that particular, incident. Um, and then I get all resolved and I'm ready to go start my day. Now, I know a lot of people meditate. It's very similar. It's the same
yeah.
kind of,
It sounds similar to meditation. Yeah, what
yeah.
you're describing.
Yeah. So I think we all need that. That's part of giving yourself a break, because otherwise you're just busy all day. You're just checking off your checklist, and it's not meaningful. You kind of lose your purpose if you're just busy all day. And
Yeah.
then you start forgetting who you are and why you were here in the first place. And then it gets really boring and really sad. It's not a full life if you're just checking off the boxes all day and you never give your spirit, your soul, that time of just quiet. That's why going out into nature, or in my case, sailing or whatever, where you're very engaged. I mean, when we were sailing 8,000 miles from South Africa up to here, just the two of us, it was a very engaging exercise. And it's good for you to be thinking about something else besides just the daily grind.
I
And then
agree
you
with
don't
you.
get tired. You kind of wake yourself up every day and start over. It's real nice. Good way to live.
Yeah, I just got back from skiing from last week, and with my husband. And it's kind of similar to what you describe, right? You just think about, okay, which slope we're gonna do now, what we're gonna have for lunch, stuff like
Yeah,
that.
important things like that.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Wow, Christine, it's been incredible speaking with you today. Anything you want to share about your company and what you do and who you help?
Yeah, we typically work with established companies. I had enough startups when I was in Silicon Valley. There's a lot of cash flow issues and crazy politics. So
Hmm.
I can do startups. I almost want to just do it as a pro bono kind of thing where I'm helping somebody, an entrepreneur or something. But so we work with established companies. I used to work only with tech companies. Now we work with pretty much anybody, and um, I have a team of about 20 people, and we specialize in digital marketing. We're obviously swimming in the AI pool.
Yeah.
as much as we can, as fast as we can. And we're starting to roll out a lot of nice platform-based tools for our clients, which is enabling us to do more services and using AI the way it should be used, not making it do things that humans really should be doing. Like when I interview customers, I'm not going to have AI do that. That's not a good idea. So, yeah, we grow businesses. I love it. I've been doing it for years. I absolutely love it. It's a fun thing to do, and especially when you're working for somebody who's not a jerk and, just making life better for everybody associated with that company. It's fun.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful. Kristin, thank you so much for being here with me today and sharing so much wisdom. And
You're welcome. Thank you. I appreciate it.
enjoy your day.
You too. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the episode with Kristin. And before you go, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode of From a Woman to a Leader. And if something resonated with you today, I'd love to hear from you. Send me a message on LinkedIn or through my website, or just email me to limor@limorbergman.com. Let's keep the conversation going. And before you go, I just want to give you a sneak peek about next week. Next week, I'm talking with someone truly extraordinary, and her name is Jen Donahue, and she is a retired US Navy captain, a civil engineer who's built bases in war zones, and now she's helping leaders like you quiet their inner critic and build real courage. So if you're struggling with imposter syndrome or fear of failure, like many of us, I think this episode is going to hit home for you as it hit for me. So I'll see you next week on another episode of From a Woman to a Leader. Thank you so much for listening.